Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are joining us from today. A very warm welcome to this joint Korea Foundation and Asia Society Switzerland virtual dialogue. My name is Nico Lochsinger, and I'm the co-executive director at Asia Society Switzerland, coming to you today live from Zurich. It seems like a lifetime ago, but in early February, no other country besides China had as many confirmed coronavirus responses as South Korea. Since then, as the disease has spread across the globe and forced billions of people into lockdown, South Korea has actually managed to control the virus. It has done so without a widespread lockdown, and it has even been able to hold national elections without triggering another outbreak in between. So how has the country done it? As Switzerland and other European countries are reopening their economies and are discussing using contact tracing apps and other measures to control the spread, we will focus today on South Korea's use of technology in its response to the coronavirus and what we can learn from it. I'm very grateful to the Korea Foundation for partnering with us for this special program. A very special thanks to Julianne Lee, who is a board member at Korea Foundation and a member of Asia Society Switzerland, for connecting us and getting the ball rolling on this program. Today, we'll first hear from two experts in Seoul about how the countries use technology to fight the virus. We'll then have a short input on the situation in Switzerland before moving into discussion. If you want to participate in this discussion, and we hope you do, please submit your questions and comments using the comment function here on YouTube. That's right below the video. There's a chat box and you can post anything there. We are very actively monitoring that and we'll try to answer as many of your questions as possible. With that, let me now introduce our two guest speakers who are joining us today live from Seoul. First, we have Ms. Min-kyung Kim, who is the Deputy Director at the Multilateral Cooperation Division in the International Cooperation Bureau at the Ministry of Science and ICT of South Korea. And next to her, Professor Tae-myung Chung, who is a faculty member at the College of Computing at Sungkyunkwan University in South Korea. His research focuses mostly on data security and digital therapeutics. Thank you both very much for joining us today. It's already later in the evening in Seoul, so thank you very much for being here. And without further ado, Ms. Kim, I would hand over to you for your introductory presentation. Thank you very much.
Good evening and good morning or afternoon, everyone. I'm Min-kyung Kim, Deputy Director at Multilateral Cooperation Division in the Ministry of Science and ICT. First of all, I'd like to appreciate Korea Foundation and Asia Society for hosting this webinar and inviting me to share Korea's experience using ICT technologies to respond to COVID-19. And thank all the participants in the YouTube channel. It is such a great honor to meet you all. The world is now facing an unprecedented coronavirus threat. Every country is putting all efforts and resources into fighting against COVID-19. So I hope this opportunity given to us today be one more step forward to better respond to this COVID-19. Here, I'd like to explain first our situation in Korea. Korea faced numerous threats and difficulties due to COVID-19 these past 4 months. Korea's COVID-19 cases per day reached a peak on February 29th. So the situation in Korea was showing a good sign of a slowdown, with most new infections at the week before May 6th having been from the outside. However, since a confirmed case on May 6th has occurred, the number of the new cases jumped to 86 on May 11th. Now the Korean government are focusing on tracing and testing people who may have been infected from the transmission of this outbreak. From the last few days, the number of new confirmed cases has been hovering around 30. So to prevent the spread of the COVID-19, Korea has taken a lot of measures using ICT technologies. First, as test kits development, Korea has conducted COVID-19 diagnostic testing to a wide range of public within a short period of time since the early stages of the spread of the COVID-19. With R&D support and emergency approval for medical devices, the government supported companies to rapidly develop testing kits and launch them in the market. As of now, 6 companies got emergency approval of COVID-19 testing kits. Korea's AI-based medical image analysis companies, including Buno and Unit, train their AI algorithms with large-scale chest X-ray photographic data to develop a small device that can detect abnormal lung conditions of COVID-19 patients in just a few seconds. Their devices can be attached and connected to portable X-ray equipment in COVID-19 screening centers or ambulances. So, Korean government has developed this self-quarantine safety app to effectively support the monitoring of people who are under the self-quarantine. This app has been implemented since March 7th, voluntarily based for residents in Korea. However, since April 1st, all the inbound travelers, including Koreans, are now required to install it to enter Korea with 14 days of self-quarantine. The app has 3 key functions: self-diagnosis, location tracking, and other stuff including guidelines on self-quarantine. When users download this app, he or she will have their assigned government case officers. When users conduct self-diagnosis, the results are automatically submitted to the assigned government officers, and location tracking is designed to prevent possible violation of self-quarantine orders based on GPS information. In case the user breaks away from the designated place, the case officers can take appropriate measures. Besides of this, the app has necessary information, including self-quarantine guidelines. And for the privacy protection, the information submitted to the assigned case officers by the app is not shared with others. And I'd like to stress that this app is only used for the purpose of preventing possible violation of self-quarantine and not for the movement tracing of confirmed patients. So I'd like to show you this epidemiological investigation support system, which is for the tracing movements of the confirmed patients. With a spike in the number of the confirmed cases in February, Korean government developed this system to efficiently track the movements of confirmed patients and lighten the burden for the epidemiological investigators. The system is based on Smart City Data Hub platform, which enables to provide necessary information using diverse sectors of the data. So this system designed to analyze a large amount of data, such as GPS and credit card transaction history from 28 related institutions and individuals to identify the transmission of virus. The KCDC, the Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, operates this system in close coordination with the National Police Agency, telecommunication companies, and credit cards companies. The system is based on the Infectious Disease Control and Prevention Act, which was amended in 2015, saying that if necessary to prevent an infectious disease and block the spread of the infection, the Minister of Health and Welfare or the Director of Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, KCDC, may request the relevant information to the institutions and individuals. To protect privacy, access to the system is granted only to the essential and assigned officers with different level of authority according to their duties. When publicly disclosing personal data subjects shall not be limited to patients who have been confirmed, and information disclosed shall be limited not to individuals specified. The system is only operated temporarily during the COVID-19 period, and all personal data stored in the system will be deleted after COVID-19 outbreak. And this is cellular broadcasting service called CBS, played an effective role too in informing the key information, including the movement paths of confirmed patients. Emergency disaster messages based on CBS are categorized into 3 types in Korea, based on the severity of the disaster, as the most urgent emergency disaster messages during wartime, and the second highest risk notification messages and safety campaign messaging. COVID-19 emergency texts are sent as safety campaign messages. Metropolitan and local governments are able to make their own decisions and request to send emergency texts without permission from the Ministry of Interior and Safety. Here you can see the sequence of sending emergency text. Municipalities can log into their system on the National Disaster and Safety Status Control Center and request to send their emergency text with CPS. Here are some examples of COVID-19 emergency texts. Municipalities are sending messages about local guidelines or confirmed patients' movement paths to prevent the spread of COVID-19. And also, as schools have been shut down due to COVID-19, students and teachers are struggling with the unprecedented online education. To support online education, central and local governments are responding to the shortage of smart tablets prepared by the government for children in low-income families. And Samsung and LG Electronics donate 33,000 tablets. And also, Telecom provider apply zero rating by exempting educational websites from data allowance. To support the remote working, the Korean government opened a website to provide information about companies providing 140 solutions for remote working and their products, and opened a YouTube channel introducing remote working solutions. As remote working is on the rise, the Korean government developed cybersecurity guidelines to reduce the risks of data breach or ransomware through personal or public computers. So there are 6 guidelines for users and also for the data security managers. Here are our efforts to respond to telecom scams. So in regards with the cybersecurity, Korea is implementing measures to enhance the response to scams with increasing cases of phishing and smishing attacks preying on fears of COVID-19. Alert text messages are sent out on a regular basis to inform all citizens of scam cases and coping methods. The strengthened damage prevention system encourages the use of apps that help prevent phishing, supports the development of mobile antivirus software. Upon the report of the scam cases, the number used for phishing will be immediately suspended. And for the last measure that I want to present today is this COVID-19 open government data. And Korean government established this official website on COVID-19, as you can see on the screen. Key information such as accumulated account by region, related institutions are summarized as visualization data. The website is designed to provide all relevant information from diverse government institutions and be connected to commercial portals to be shown easily. Ministry of Health and Welfare and the Health Insurance Review Assessment Service provide data on the website and of data portal in API format. So, as publicly distributed mask information service is also this kind of open data using. When people's concern have grown over face mask shortage in Korea, the government allowed only public retail firms such as pharmacies, post offices, and etc. to sell face masks. To reduce people's concern, the government has provided real-time data of publicly distributed face masks to the public. With a public-private partnership approach, the government released the data on face masks sold at public retailers. Cloud companies provide cloud and map resources, and the app developers use the data to provide information services for the public. So COVID-19 is a big threat to all humanity, and Korea's experience using ICT technologies to respond to COVID-19, and ICT is an effective tool to fight against pandemic. With the full use of the ICT technologies and proactive international collaboration, We hope we all can overcome the pandemic shortly. So thank you all and very much for your attention. For more information, you can visit the website given on the last screen. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kim. I think this was a fascinating overview, very condensed insights on everything that the South Korean government has done. To me, what is especially impressive is the speed with which all of this has happened. And I do think that's something we probably want to get into in the discussion later. But before we do that, let me just turn over the word to Professor Jung for some additional insights on using technology to fight coronavirus. Please, Professor.
Thank you, Mr. Luxinger. I'd like to say that I'm not giving this presentation to say that Korea is better than any other countries. I'm just want to introduce what we have done to fight against the COVID-19 using ICT so that you may get some help from our experience. Also, you may find some identical materials from Ms. Kim's presentation because we are from the same country. But I'll try to say it differently and with different aspects. I'm going to briefly say that what is the status of COVID-19 in Korea from the beginning, then continue with a few key measures for flattening the curve of the COVID-19. Then I named 40 the countermeasures to fight against the COVID-19 using ICT. Then I'm going to explain what are the 4 T's. Then I'm going to conclude my talk. You can see that this the figure. Then we have the first confirmed case from China on January 20th at the Incheon airport. Then it's picked. The number is picked February 29th, about a month later, with 909 confirmed cases. Then as of today, we have 11,018 confirmed cases and 260 people died. The curve flattened down to 2 confirmed cases on May 16. So we thought that, it's almost over. But unfortunately, we have another mass infection in Itaewon on May 6th. Then that's the same day that we're winding down from the social distance campaign to normal daily life. Then if you see the graph on right top side, then you can see the numbers rise from May 8th because of this mass infection. But fortunately, then we found out that what are the sources of the infection, then how the virus moved as of today, so we don't worry too much. Then also we congratulate that one lady of age of 104 released from the COVID-19 today. Then I'm going to say that how we fight against the COVID-19 in Korea. Then Korea is very, very lucky because we have a lesson from the MERS in 2015. Then in early time, we had another mass infection from Shincheonji, it's a group of church. Then because it warned us a lot, so we started a social distance campaign. It's very successful. And also, we have very good internet penetration rate. Almost everyone can access to the internet, at least the speed of 100 megabps. Then also almost everyone used the mobile phones. And fortunately, the Ministry of Information and Communication started to teach the people how to use the internet since 2000. So almost everyone know how to use the internet. Then on top of this, the background, we aggressively applying 40 countermeasures. Then I would say telling, testing, tracing, and treatment. Then by telling, we provide information to the people to promote what are the status, then how to respond to the COVID-19. Also, we accelerate the development of examination kit using IC technology such as big data and AI. Then also we have very good surveillance and tracking systems for self-quarantine, health, and their move. Then also we are on the way of developing the medicines using AI. I'm going to say the details of those 4T. Then telling, then government opened the website, which is everybody can access, then saying then what is status and how to respond to the COVID-19. Also, Ms. Kim already explained about the disaster alerting message. This one, whenever we have the confirmed cases, the message goes to everybody. Then also in the private sector, then some companies use the data released from the government and develop some the apps and launched for the people. Then why is not? This is one of the companies who opened the Corona 119 chatbot, which is a chatting robot to inform the way of preventing and correctly responding coronavirus. And also we have a KSIC open the map, then showing the route of patients and screening centers and all those information using their GIS data. And Clover Call, when we have 600 people confirm the cases, then we recognize and realize that we cannot handle by the human. So Naver developed Clover Care Call. So it's the AI automatically call to the self-quarantine people twice a day and find out their health condition and informs to the public health center. Then this one already Ms. Kim explained this, so let me just pass it over. But I like to emphasize that we tried to encourage to use public data since 2013, but we couldn't find a good way of doing it. But in this example, it shows that we can open the government data using the API so that the public sector, the industry may develop the apps or applications or services. And more than 30 web apps developed and launched within 2 weeks. In the tracing, this one is used for the inbound travelers. Then we found out that the inbound, most of the confirmed cases are from the inbound travelers since April. So we require all the inbound travelers to install this app and report the health condition, like body temperature, cough and sore throat, and difficult breathing stuff to the health center. Then it's installed over 170 people, inbound travelers already, and 9,000 appropriate actions taken. Then it also provides all those necessary information to the travelers. And this is information flow. When people are coming into the Korea, the National Quarantine Station have the special examination and send the report to the KCDC. Then KCDC is sending the information to the Health Insurance Review Assessment Service. Then if they are okay, then they are supposed to have a 14-day quarantine period, then handles appropriately. You can have this figure, the picture, and easily figure out. Then another app, which is exactly very similar to the previous app that I show, then everybody can use. This is not only for the inbound travelers, or everybody can use this one. It's connecting the users and the officers, so that the users, the self-quarantine people, just send the information to the officers, and the officers looking at those data and inform to the headquarters. This epidemic investigation support, this one was also explained by Ms. Kim. But interesting thing is that the Korea had developed some smart city project before this. Then when we had this the pandemic situation, we just convert the developed the system under the development into the epidemiological investment support system within a week. So they can deploy this in a month. Then they collect all this information from telco companies and credit card companies and CCTVs and analyze the big data and find out where the confirmed cases or self-quarantine people moved. Then it's based on the legal law, the Infectious Disease Prevention and Management Act. I understand many countries don't have this kind of legal support, but in Korea we had experience from MERS, and right after the MERS we amended this law. And also help us to detect the incident of cluster inspection, the mass inspection, and the source of transmission. By using this system, we can find out what is the source of the infection, and just trace them back down and try to separate those people from the normal people. Then our concern, you may have this concern too. Since we are using a lot of privacy data, then we are concerned about the privacy protection. Then we are using the CCTV footage, then credit card transaction data, travel information, and location data to keep tabs of patients. So we also worry about the privacy. But the life is more important than privacy. We just hold it on. But still, the government is trying their best to make those information secure. So we just collect the minimum data, and right after the case closed, it's just get rid of or destroy the data, and require all those officers, the investigators, to access. They have the permission and approval, and also they have a security clearance, so that we try to minimize the situation incident from the hacking stuff, the information leakage by the hackers or by the internal officers. And also we apply all those modern security solutions like firewalls and IDS to make the information secure. And also we worry that there are very frequent phishing and smishing attacks to health authorities and patients. And also the government is giving the money to the people for the disaster. So there are lots of those phishing messages going around. So as Ms. Kim showed, that we are giving the warning to the people. Then we have the very early the testing kits and the medications using AI. Then CGen is the first mover to develop their own diagnostic kit, and it's approved by the Canada, Europe, and America, and deployed in more than 100 countries already. And Lunid and Vino is already explained. They have been doing the research on developing the CT or X-ray analysis using AI, so they can figure out if they have a lung problem within 3 seconds. Then Arontier and Diogen, they are the research companies, and they are developing some candidate substances. So Diogen, using the AI by analyzing the data, they found that some medicines for HIV virus can work for this COVID-19 coronaviruses. So this kind of, I'm not telling you all those companies, all those services. I'm just telling you the few services. We have a lot more services and applications. Then this is my last page. It's lessons and issues. Even though we are paying so much tuition to learn from COVID-19, we try to get together to make a best effort to turn the crisis into opportunity. Particularly, we are experiencing the value of ICT during for the fighting the against the COVID-19. So we try to learn learn more from this situation. And also, we believe that the combat against coronavirus is not ended. We may have the more severe situation, so we are trying to prepare it. So we like to build the ICT infrastructure more and e-government centered digital society so that we can communicate in this disaster. And also we realize that the public and private sector's cooperation is very, very important. So we're going to have the more channels and communities between the public and private sectors. And we found that we have too much law to apply the remote work or remote education, particularly remote Medicare. So people are talking about how we amend those laws and regulations. And also we find out that this is international pandemic. So we need a kind of international information sharing and information collaboration. So after this the situation, I suggest that all those nations should get together to overcome this kind of disaster together. And also, finally, we still have some problems to resolve, like economic problems and mental damages and private problems from COVID-19. So this is kind of homework. But I believe that we can overcome this kind of problems too. Then we wish that this situation is ended soon and peacefully we come back to the normal life. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Chung, for these remarks. Again, I think we've seen here a very fascinating insight into all these different tools that are there. And I do want to get into more detail how they really work. But first of all, we here in Switzerland, we've been gradually coming out of the lockdown that has been instituted in mid-March. Since beginning of this week, most shops, most restaurants have reopened. There are security and safety measures in place, but life is returning a little bit to normal. And at the same time, of course, our authorities are thinking about the best ways, the best methods to suppress the spread of the virus, and that includes using technology. I'm very, very happy that we now also can welcome Dr. Sang-Il Kim here with us on this call. He's the head of the Department for Digitalization at the Federal Office for Public Health in Switzerland, joining us directly from Bern, the capital. And he will give a short overview of how Switzerland is currently thinking about using ICT in the virus response. Please, Dr. Kim.
Okay, do you hear me? Hello, everybody. Thank you very much, Mr. Luxinger, for the kind introduction. Yeah, I'm really happy to join this session and also give you some insight of the Swiss, how we react on the pandemic here. And I was asked to give you a little bit information about our current plans to introduce a kind of a proximity tracing app, because this is the only app we are providing from the governmental side, from the health authority. This app is more or less the same thing what maybe you already know from the Singapore government. The app is called Trace Together there, and they introduced this app in end of March. And that was a starting point how to use the smartphone technology based on Bluetooth low energy to find people who were next to you and might be also then be infected by the virus. And here on this slide, you see the whole process. So first of all, it's the idea that voluntarily the people can install this governmental app. And also with the installation of the app, there will be no any personal data put it into the app or into the smartphone, and no personal data will be stored anywhere. And on the right side, then, in the case of using the app, of course, you will have some contact, some tight contacts with people. And when you are infected, then there will be a health authority, mostly a cantonal physician, who are doing the contact management. The classical contact tracing people then will hand over an access code. And with this access code, this infected person then could warn the other people. Here on the left side, you see the persons B and C. That means these people are informed that they had contact with people where they don't know, maybe they don't remember. For instance, sitting in a bus or in a train together, or sitting in a restaurant together, not knowing each other. And these people then, with the warning, then could also go to their physicians and ask for testing and so on and so forth. And this app was made by the concept from the university, from the Swiss Eidgenössische Technische Hochschule. I don't know how to explain that. Sorry.
The Polytechnicum.
Yeah, thanks. The Polytechnic Universities from Switzerland. And the major idea here behind was to use the concept of Singapore, but to make it really, really safe and secure, and to preserve the privacy of the people. And this is maybe the strength and also the weakness of our app approach here. So we have a total voluntary system with no personal data of the people, and this app technically works, but it is in the mind, it is the persons themselves who have to decide if they want to warn other people, and also if they really want to go to get tested and also go into a kind of a self isolation or self quarantine. And because of these all voluntary stuff and anonymous stuff, a lot of people here currently in Switzerland say maybe that don't work and will not work. But until now, we believe still in the solidarity of the people using the app afterwards, and then have the possibility to break the change, the infection change, which are the biggest problem, as you all know, because of this asymptomatic people who also can infect who are contagious and can infect other people. Okay. On the next slide, just give you a short impression of our app. On the left side, you see the normal way how the app would present to the app user. So you can stop the tracing. In several cases, it might be good to stop the tracing. And then there are no reports, no warnings. In the middle, you see the same user interface, but then with the warning, that means a possible infection. And with this, you should then call a hotline, a national hotline, where you get more advice and where you can also ask your questions, what to do and what not to do. And on the right side, you see this entering of this code. So we have built that with the entering of the code because of possible misusage, and to inform false positive other people not to do that. So these are the only two things I have here right now as a short explanation of our app. This app will be going into a pilot phase next week, and we will have the national rollout mid of June. Major reason for that is that we are waiting for an Apple and Google application interface, so a new OS system from Android and from Apple iOS, because with this new technology, we can have much better distance measurements, and also a better solution for the battery life. Because currently, the current application like Trace Together in Singapore, or the new one which was launched 2 days ago in Great Britain, they have the problem that the Bluetooth is more or less asking for a lot of energy, and your battery life is quite short because of that. And that's why we are waiting for the new operating systems, and based on that, we will start our pilot next week, because it was announced by Apple and Google they will have these update next week. So coming to a short question from my side, as I have understood, the Korean government is only the owner from only one app. This is correct, and all the other apps are private initiatives. Is this correct?
Thank you very much, Dr. Kim. And let's just maybe turn to Ms. Kim in Seoul for a quick answer on that question. So I've understood it the same way, that the majority of the apps that are being used are being developed by private companies. So what the government does is provide the data, but the apps themselves are not developed and controlled by the government. Is that correct?
Particularly the mask app, since we are producing about 10 million masks, little over than 10 million masks a day, but we have a 50 million population. So we have deficiency of the masks. So people should go around to find the retail stores to buy a face mask. So we government opened the data, and the private sectors developed the apps. So particularly for this face mask apps, then it's correct. But we are not doing the critical information. We are for the critical information use, then the government self developed some apps. For example, the quarantine safety app, that they collect all those the privacy information. In that case, the government itself developed the apps. But other than that, if it's not very critical information, then we government give the data to the, for example, the route of the patients is giving to the private sector. Then they develop the apps and showing the routes on the map.
This is really interesting because here in Switzerland, the population never would accept that this kind of information will be distributed by the government. As you know, the data privacy issue here is another issue for the population here, for the people, and they never would accept that all these kind of GPS geolocation tracking information will be provided to any private company. And also, even if the government only would use this kind of data, no one here would accept that. So I know that in Korea, the health is more important than the privacy, at least in this crisis situation, but not the same here in Switzerland.
No,
so
I hope
think this is one of the
you
biggest
don't
differences.
misunderstand what I'm saying. Then Korea is very strict. We have very strict laws for the privacy protection. Then I'm not saying that we are just ignore the privacy protection. I'm saying that we try to preserve all those privacy information, but open those non-privacy information to the public. Then I think from 2002, then we are developing very strict law for the privacy protection. I would say that it's almost or more stronger than GDPR. So if you understand that we just open the privacy data for health, that's the misconception. Then we are trying to hold those information, but we open the information as much as possible. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And I do want to thank you also, Dr. Kim, for these insights. I think it's fascinating. The one thing that really struck me is that of all the tools that South Korea has, what South Korea does not do is contact tracing through an app, right? So this idea of a contact tracing app, we've seen it in Singapore, as Dr. Kim has mentioned. There's now one in Great Britain. Switzerland is testing one. Many other European countries are developing one as well. And it's been often hailed as this solution that will help us to control the virus. And I would be very interested, Ms. Kim, Professor Chung, if you could briefly talk about why South Korea has chosen to not do this app. You clearly have done a great many things. They have obviously been successful, but you have not done the one thing that we here in Switzerland very often believe, would be the key in a large extent to success. So can you talk us through the rationale? Why is there no South Korean contact tracing app?
So at the EISS system, it also has this contact tracing data, and it also used the other data like credit card payments or individuals interviewing. So we began with this system to trace and track the confirmed patients' movements. So we didn't actually need to consider the contact tracing app.
Actually, this EIS creates rather this fortunate case that we had a mass infection in Daegu area. This is one of the cities in Korea. Then, fortunately, we had been developing some smart city. Then, using those data hub, we were able to develop the systems Then we had one privacy problem, but we passed the law in 2016 that if it's the matter of a human's life, we can collect the critical information. But still, the government is supposed to protect those information inside. There might be 3 cases of danger. One is that the hackers hack the system and leak those information. So we are trying to keep those information using the modern services and solutions. And also, the internet use may open the privacy information to outside. So we have very strict clearance. But still, we are worrying about any mistaken behavior may leak source information to our side. So we are very careful, but we are not saying the 100% is safe, but in European countries, you may not have this kind of law, and so it may not be possible for you to utilize those information. You collect and process those information. And afterward, I believe that we're going to talk about how we manipulate those laws and those services. But that's the Korea's choice that even though we have some danger, we should protect the human life first. Then we try to keep the privacy as much as possible. So far, we don't have any problem, the hacking instance or any information leaked outside. But there are small problems, but we can manage them so far.
And I just want to make sure that I understand and that our listeners understand is what you're saying, and what both you, Ms. Kim, and Professor Chung, I think have done a great job in explaining, is that of course there is contact tracing in South Korea. Of course it's being supported by digital technologies, but the way you do it is not by tracking people's movements through an app that's installed on their phone. You actually go directly through the source, and you have this possibility of tracking people by requesting their cell phone data, the GPS data, by requesting their credit card information from the provider. So it's in a way, it's a very centralized way of contact tracing, where the tracing and sort of data processing happens centralized and not on people's phones. And as I think you have both pointed out, this goes back to a law that was introduced not because of coronavirus. It was introduced because of MERS, the Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome, back in 2013. So obviously this is a somewhat special situation, as you have pointed out, Professor Chung. Many countries do not have this kind of legal framework that would allow for this. So I was wondering, and this is actually a question that came to us from the audience, from a YouTube comment, how was the response to this law when it was first introduced? I'm assuming that today there is widespread public support, for doing this, but were there any concerns, any relating to privacy or anything else when this law was first introduced in 2013?
Actually, it was 2015 when the MERS outbreak.
Sorry.
And it's okay. And then at the time, it was like a really important matter in Korea to protect people's health when this emergency disaster has occurred. So a lot of people in Korea just needed to make this solid legal ground to make sure to protect people, as in case like this kind of COVID-19 outbreak.
I think Korean people don't have much objection. I think the people are very supportive to this law, because we had the election a few weeks ago. Then the government was had very good respect by the people. Because of the countermeasures against the coronavirus. Then I like to say that we don't trace all those people. We don't collect all those people's information. We only ask the information for those infected people. And also, they don't directly ask telco companies to get the data. They get the permission from the NPA, the National Police Agency, then get some data from the telco companies. So we are not just directly get the data or arbitrarily get the data. We have very precautious procedure to get the data and save the data. So since the people know that the privacy information is handled carefully, and also we care about the human life, then I believe the Korean people are supporting this countermeasure.
All right. Let me briefly turn to Dr. Kim, who I think had a question as well. So let's hear that one.
Yes, thank you. As we all agree, I think that this crisis is not over, not yet, and also will still be for next months, maybe 1 or 2 years. Do you have any plans to towards other and more better digital tools? So you have right now a lot of digital tools for the population, and I'm quite aware that a lot of Korean people are using them. But because of the crisis is going on, do you have any plans to have other kind of digital tools which you want to provide from the governmental side, or is it like it is how today and that's it?
Actually, so far we rely on the social distance campaign. So this kind of apps worked, but we more focus on the R&D to develop the medicines or the vaccines. So the government is spending a lot of money to develop some the medicines using AI and big data analysis. Then for the social distance campaign, I don't think we need more services unless somebody have very special services developed.
Okay, thank
you. We do have a few more questions that also came in from the audience that are sort of concerning smaller problems or issues that may arise when using the system. So these likely come also from people who perhaps live in South Korea or have spent time there. The first one is, you've mentioned, and I've heard reports of this as well, the inbound traveler app that people are required to use when they arrive in South Korea. And the question is, what do you do with people who do not have a smartphone? I'm not sure if there are any people who travel to South Korea who don't have smartphones, but I'm sure you have thought about the case. You have an international traveler, you require them to go into self-quarantine and monitor its symptoms, but they don't have a smartphone. How do you deal with that? Is there a backup solution?
Actually, we are doing this policy in coordination with the telecom providers. So we, and also the other devices companies. So they are offering for temporary using of the devices like smartphones. So for those who may have not kind of smartphones, they can download the app.
And the other question, sorry, please go ahead, Professor Chung.
When I give a talk to the ADB, that I got the question, similar question that what if we don't have the infrastructure for the 4G and 5G? They only have 2Gs, but still we have the way to send the text to the people. Yeah. So if you don't have devices, there is no way to apply this. But as Ms. Kim says, I didn't know that we have this very good rental procedure. That was a very good question.
Thank you. And as I mentioned before, it came from somebody watching live stream on YouTube, so it was not my question. So thank you, whoever asked that question, for that. And another question that we've also received through the YouTube chat function, also concerning sort of an issue with data collection. So as you've said, if you have a confirmed case, then in South Korea you have this possibility to gather their telco data, gather their credit card data, to sort of trace their path. But you still rely on quote unquote old-fashioned contact tracing to identify the people that infected person may have come into contact with. So you would go to restaurants and bars, I assume, to collect phone numbers of people who have been there. And there have been a number of reports that in some cases people would submit wrong phone numbers when going somewhere, wrong phone numbers when being asked, for fear that by submitting their data something about their private life, perhaps their sexual orientation may be revealed. So how do you deal with the issue of getting people to comply with submitting the data when it's voluntary?
Actually, we are using these all sectors of data that we can be provided from the telecom providers or credit card companies, and so with that we are trying to make higher the accuracy of the movements of the confirmed cases, and when they collect the data, it is only collected by the assigned case officers. So people may have this thought that it is not all disclosed to all data collected are not disclosed to all citizens. So we are trying to just use all the data and then make the accuracy.
This is another good question. We're not just using the ICT solutions, but also we use the old-fashioned the investigation or interviewing systems. So we are matching those two. We just had one good example case. A few days ago, then we found one infected person from the mass infection group. Then he lied, he deceived, and he gave the wrong information about a job and where to live and things. Then while we are matching those the information from telcos and others, then we found out he lied. Then finally we had the true fact. Then find out the sources. So some cases we have those kind of problems, but we just believe those people, but we matching with the information we are getting from ICT. So we're not just using just one way of investigating. We are using all those information.
Thank you very much. We're already almost at the end of our time today. I do want to end with a few short questions. Maybe first, Dr. Kim in Bern. You've heard now all these different apps that are being used in South Korea, all these different tools that they have. If you could bring one and only one of them to Switzerland that we don't yet have, which one would it be? What would be most useful for us to adapt from South Korea?
Thank you for the question. To be honest, as I know that several things wouldn't work here because of the privacy issue, but one thing which would be very helpful is to get the information in which areas you have an outbreak. Because we are hoping that, of course, we will have very low rates of infections, but then it would mean if you know the area of the outbreak, then the people would be very cautious going there, and also knowing if they're not there, they are quite safe. This kind of information, which is really broadly used in Korea, I know, this would be very helpful also in Switzerland.
If you use our system very roughly, then you can get the data from the base station. It's not pinning out the location, but just give the area of the base
Correct.
station. Then you can use those systems. Same systems, but with a different data.
Yeah.
And finally, a somewhat similar question to both you, Ms. Kim, and Professor Chung in Seoul. You're obviously both experts. You've been deeply involved in developing this response, coordinating this response, but you're also both citizens. You live in South Korea, so you have lived through this phase of the pandemic. As citizens, as people who also use these tools and apps privately, which one have you found most helpful? So of all the things you told us about in your daily lives, what's the one that you feel has made the biggest difference?
I'd like to say that CBS system is really in our daily lives, so it can just distribute the guidelines on local governments so that they can just check every day or every time like how the situation in Korea on the response of COVID-19 is going. So that is for me, it is really real time and then effective one.
I would like to say that the self-quarantine safety app, I don't have to use all those functions in the lab, like reporting and those kind of things, but at least I can find all those information that I need. I didn't get infected yet, but I like to know that how we can respond to the COVID-19 and what are the places, what are the contact points when I have problems, and also I can find what's going on. So I would say that even though I don't use all those functions, the self-quarantine safety app could be very helpful. And also, I like to say that you said that Switzerland can import one of the services from Korea, but I like to emphasize the international cooperation. I like to share those tools that we have with other countries, and also I like to get some service from Switzerland or other countries, but still we are lack of collaboration. So in this time, we like to share our tools and services and informations so that we can manage this disaster efficiently.
Thank you very much. Yes.
And I think with this call for global cooperation, this is a very good point to end this conversation. There will, of course, be a lot more to talk about, and I'm sure we'll have many more of these conversations, hopefully also between the countries as we figure out a common response to the coronavirus. For now, I would express my deepest thanks to Ms. Kim, Professor Chung in Seoul, Dr. Kim in Bern, and the Korea Foundation for allowing us to host this fantastic dialogue. I hope we can do it again soon. Thank you, everybody, for watching and for your great questions. I do apologize that we couldn't get to all of them, but I hope we were able to answer at least some of them. There was one question I briefly want to address because actually it was about the Swiss app. And I do think, Dr. Kim, it's correct that right now this app cannot be downloaded yet. It's a test app and the public version will only be released in June. So you'll have to wait for that, but then we'll also have it here. So again, thank you all very much for joining us. I wish you a wonderful remainder of the evening or afternoon or morning, depending on where you are. And we do look forward to seeing you soon at an Age Study Switzerland or Korea Foundation virtual dialogue. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.